The Seattle Seahawks didn't just sell for a record-breaking $9. $612 billion. They may have just entered the most dangerous era in franchise history. Because the biggest threat to Seattle is no longer on the football field. It's the people who now own the team.
So $9.612 billion for the defending Super Bowl champions. As I may have said last week, the accomplishments on the field don't matter. It's the scarcity asset, the sharing of the revenue. Any team is going to be worth that amount. And I think back to something I may have said 5-6 years ago, that in time, the average random NFL team is going to be worth $10 billion. And here we are, kissing right up against $10 billion. And the Lakers were sold for $10 billion not that long ago. So it's kind of strange that an NBA team would sell for more. And there have been minority stakes in other teams that have sold at a valuation in excess of $10 billion. So I think they probably expected, or at least hoped, it would break 10, because the rest of the teams benefit from that fact. It's the rising tide that will lift every boat. As we get higher and higher prices for these teams, it naturally makes an equally scarce asset even more valuable if you keep pushing the purchase price higher and higher and higher. Are guaranteed to keep making a lot of money every single year, but there's only one way to go but down for the team. And the real question is, from the perspective of the employees and the fans, what will the Coastlers do as it relates to changing things? It ain't broke. Will they try to fix it? And when you pay $9.612 billion, you're entitled to do whatever you choose to do. So first, the transaction has to be approved. And there's no objective reason at this point to think it won't be.
Like, here's the thing about this, right? And I would say this is nothing against the Coastlers, who I'm still learning about, who I think we're all still learning about, right? Like, I didn't know anything about them before the sales process. Mm-hmm. Here's what I think every fan base has to have their radar up for. And I think you're seeing this in a lot of different sports now. These teams have become such incredible investments that you're attracting a type of owner now who is in it as not just I want to be in football and help my team. No, they view it as a business proposition. Mm-hmm. And I think, you're seeing this across sports, and I think it's hurt certain franchises across sports. Again, nothing to do with the Coastlers. They might wind up being the best owners in the NFL. I don't know. But these teams have become such great investments. The appreciation, just look at the numbers. Like the Bills, I believe, sold in 2014 for $1.4 billion. Then the Panthers were, I think it was $2.275 billion in 2018. That's 8 years ago. And we're talking about a team selling for more than 4 times that much.
Yeah.
Now Seattle's more valuable than I get it, but still, that's an amazing rate of an appreciation. And I remember talking to somebody.
Yeah. And
Paul Allen, to his credit, and then Jody too, sort of, I'm not going to say they gave the John Schneiders and Pete Carrolls and Mike McDonald's of the world blank checks, but it was sort of like that, go run it. You know what I mean? And they were always very well staffed. They were always very well resourced. And if you've been there to their facility in Washington State, you've seen it.
Yeah.
It's a first-class operation in every way. And so the bar is going to be really high for these guys coming in.
What I would say is this, and this has come up a couple times already, where you have the Lakers just cut whatever it was, 30, 40 jobs. You had Tom Dundon, the owner of the Trailblazers, who was, has a coach now in a 1-year contract.
Which is crazy. When I saw that, it's holy crap.
He wasn't traveling two-way players. And his team, the Carolina Hurricanes, which he runs similarly, just won the Stanley
Cup.
And so my fear with any owner coming in, right, is that they see Tom doing that. And, I think it goes back to like, I think it was the Chargers, whatever it was a couple months ago, where they posted like a job for like 50 grand in LA, to do, a lot of work. Right. And at some point, the capitalizing on that is and trying to run it like a business, because you can get 100 crazy people to work for a football team for next to nothing.
At the end of the day, what they respect is the good businessman.
And that's what's impossible for us to fathom. And that's why, because that's why when everybody says, oh, who cares, right? This team has a new owner. Who cares? Doesn't matter. It does, because we are now, especially with the injection of private equity, right? You look at it as a set of balancing scales, right? And when football first started, you had, the core families. It was, out of love, it's passion, it's wanting to win. And with every one of these new owners, the scales tip even more towards like, we're going to make a lot of money on this. We're going to make a lot of money on this. We're going to make a lot of money on this. And how many more of these teams turn over to the people who simply want to run it as a business? And I think when we find that ratio and we hit that ratio, we're going to find out how much that sucks. You know what I mean? Like am I right or am I wrong? Because it's like that we need, and I know this is crazy to say, we need the Ursays. We need the Davises. We need the Rooneys, right? That it's their family's legacy on the line, and not like, oh, my dad runs like Purdue Chicken and we bought this to dump a bunch of, we bought this as a tax shelter,
and that's the thing is, you know what I mean? Like that's the thing. It's like, well, I have 15 other businesses. Okay, great. Like, do you really care about my football team? And I can tell you, like, the Giants' struggles over the last 15 years, there is nobody that bothers more than John Mara. Nobody. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There is nobody that is dying inside more over the Giants' problems over the last 15 than he cares deeply.
Mm-hmm.
And his priority is the Giants because it's his family. You know what I mean?
Right.
It's his family's legacy. And you can question everything. There's a lot of things you can question in that organization over the course of the last decade and a half. But I think that's one thing you can never question, that he wants to win and he's willing to do whatever. And you're right. Like, if this is just part of your portfolio, do you view it the same way? So, like, I think that creates an interesting test for the new Seahawks owners, because I do think, like, even though Paul Allen was the ultimate example of, Paul Allen also had unlimited money, which is not, there are very few examples. Ballmer with the Clippers, right? There are very few examples of guys who have that level of wealth. And this family is obviously fabulously wealthy, but are they willing to go the extra mile? Are they willing to lose in some cases from a business standpoint to win on the field? I think that's the question you always have to ask when these transactions take place. To their credit, I think the Walton Penners have proven in Denver, we're willing to do whatever it takes. Right?
Yeah. And that's what you hope you get as a fan.
$9.612 billion. That isn't just a record-breaking sale. It could become the moment the Seattle Seahawks entered the most dangerous chapter in franchise history. Not because of a rival, not because of injuries, not because of the salary cap, because the biggest threat may now be sitting inside the owner's suite. For years, Seattle built one of the NFL's gold standards: elite facilities, aggressive investment, a front office empowered to chase championships, a culture that told coaches and executives one simple message: go win. Now everything changes. The Seahawks have become one of the most expensive sports franchises ever sold just months after winning the Super Bowl. At NOAA, $612 billion. They are now brushing against the mythical $10 billion mark that experts once believed would take years to reach. But here's the uncomfortable reality. History shows buying a team is easy. Protecting what made it great is much harder. Because once someone spends nearly $10 billion, the pressure to protect that investment begins immediately. And sometimes, winning football games stops being the first priority. So why are so many NFL insiders less focused on the record price and far more concerned about what usually happens after the celebration ends? The sale price isn't shocking because Seattle suddenly became a better football team. It's shocking because NFL franchises have become some of the safest investments on earth. Think about the numbers. The Buffalo Bills sold for approximately $4 billion in 2014. The Carolina Panthers sold for roughly $275 billion in 2018. Now, only 8 years later, Seattle sells for $612 billion. That isn't normal appreciation. That's an explosion in franchise value, revenue sharing, national television money, global media rights, limited supply. Every owner knows there are only 32 NFL teams, and scarcity creates wealth. Every record-breaking sale lifts the value of every other franchise. That's why owners celebrate these deals even if they never plan to sell. But here's where fans should become nervous. When billions of dollars are involved, the type of buyer begins to change. Some purchase teams because football is their life's passion. Others purchase teams because football has become one of the most profitable assets money can buy. Those are two completely different motivations. And over the next few years, Seattle may reveal which one truly matters. Because the Seahawks weren't built by cutting corners, they were built by spending wherever winning demanded it. One reason Seattle became one of the NFL's model organizations wasn't luck, it was commitment. Under Paul Allen's ownership, the Seahawks earned a reputation for giving football people the resources they needed, not unlimited blank checks, but close enough. The organization invested heavily in personnel, in scouting, in facilities, in technology, in coaching. Visit the Seahawks headquarters. And one message becomes obvious. This wasn't a franchise trying to save pennies. It was a franchise trying to win championships. That philosophy carried through different leadership eras, from Pete Carroll to John Schneider, and now to Mike McDonald. The expectation was never simply to compete. It was to build an organization capable of sustaining excellence. That is now the standard facing the new ownership group, and matching that standard may prove far more difficult than writing a multi-billion-dollar check. Because across professional sports, a troubling trend is beginning to emerge, and Seahawks fans have every reason to pay attention. Across sports, ownership is changing. More billionaires, more investment groups, more private equity, more executives treating franchises like financial portfolios instead of lifelong family legacies. Fans have already watched organizations reduce staff, slash expenses, delay investments, operate with business efficiency instead of championship urgency. No one is accusing Seattle's new owners of doing that. Not yet. In fact, they could ultimately become outstanding NFL owners. But the concern isn't about today's decisions. It's about tomorrow's priorities. When difficult choices arrive, will football come first, or will quarterly business performance? Because that's the question every fan eventually asks. Do you own this team because you love football, or because football makes extraordinary money? The Seahawks have entered a completely new era, and nobody, not even the league, knows exactly what comes next. One decision, one philosophy, one shift in priorities could determine whether Seattle continues chasing Lombardi trophies or slowly becomes another franchise where profits rise while championships disappear. The sale may have shattered financial records, but the real story is only beginning. Yo, mic check 1 to 2, -1, -2. Game over for this video, folks. Smash that like button, drop a comment, and subscribe to stay in the huddle for more. This is NFL Madness, bringing the heat and signing out.